What if I told you, right now, not as poetry, not as fantasy, but as truth, that your future isn't locked in stone? That it's not sealed by your past, not dictated by your failures, not chained to who you used to be? What if the version of you who hesitated, who buckled under pressure, who buried his strength, that version wasn't the final draft, but just the rough sketch? And what if this moment, this very speech, is the moment you reclaim the pen? Listen closely. You are not a slave to your past. You are the author of your next chapter. And every thought, every word, every repeated belief you allow into your mind today is shaping the life you will live tomorrow. So I'll ask you straight, no fluff, no filter. Are you ready to write something new? Not with ink, but with identity. Not with your hand, but with your habits. You didn't land here by accident. No one finds this message unless something deep within them is ready to rise. You're here because you felt it. There's more to you, something untapped. And while the world might see this as just another motivational speech, I'll tell you now, this is not entertainment. This is your wake-up call, a divine interruption, a reset button for the man who's tired of just surviving his days and ready to start commanding them. But I have to be honest with you. Hearing this once won't be enough. Power doesn't come from inspiration. It comes from repetition, because what you repeat becomes rhythm, and rhythm becomes identity. So today, I'm going to give you 10 laws, not to fire you up for a few minutes, but to transform how you live. And if you have the guts to come back to this again and again, you won't even recognize the man you'll become. Let's begin. Law 1. You become what you think about. Every man on this earth lives under a law higher than any government, constitution, or court. It's the law of thought. What you think about most, you become. Not the thoughts you flirt with once in a while, not the daydreams, but the dominant idea you allow to camp in your mind. That's what will manifest in your life. It's simple. And that's why most people ignore it. It doesn't sound flashy enough for the ego. But this is the root of all transformation. Let me say this clearly. You are not your thoughts, but you are always becoming the thoughts you repeat. Let fear linger in your mind, you'll live a fearful life. Let doubt sit on the throne of your thinking, you'll build a reality where you second-guess every step. Now let me show you proof. When I met Andrew Carnegie, the man didn't talk to me about money, politics, or power. He asked me one question. What's the one thought you think about when no one's watching? He understood something the world still hasn't figured out. Your silent thoughts are the blueprint of your destiny. Carnegie didn't see himself as a poor boy from Scotland. He saw himself as a builder of nations, an architect of the modern world. And because he repeated that thought again and again, reality had no choice but to bend to it. Now look at Henry Ford, a man with no formal education, mocked, dismissed, laughed at, but he anchored his mind to one belief. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. That wasn't a clever quote. It was mental programming, a line of code he installed into his subconscious until it rewired everything. Ford fought about possibility, not as a wish, but as a law. And that single dominant idea became the engine of an empire. Your mind is a garden. The thoughts you plant are the seeds. Your emotions water them. And repetition is the sun. If you plant fear and feed it daily, your life will be filled with fear. But if you plant faith, If you water it with emotion and repeat it until it blooms, your life will bend toward that belief. This is not positive thinking. This is not wishful dreaming. I'm talking about installing thoughts until they become your subconscious operating system. Let's talk about Edison. 10,000 failed attempts at creating a light bulb. 10,000. But his dominant thought, it will work. Not I hope, not maybe. It will work. He repeated that belief with so much conviction that failure couldn't infect his identity. He became light because that's what he believed more than anything else. So I'll ask you this. What do you think about when your phone is off, when no one's watching, when the noise fades? Because that thought is your true belief, and your life is quietly being shaped by that it. If your dominant thought is delay, your results will always be delayed. If your dominant thought is fear, you'll live stuck in hesitation. But if your dominant thought is purpose, power, and I am becoming the man I was born to be, then you will rise. You must start guarding your thoughts like treasure. You must speak your identity aloud every day. Write your aim. Think only what you want to become. Say this out loud. I am not a prisoner of random thought. I am the architect of focus. My dominant thoughts are deliberate, clear, and aligned with my purpose. What I think about most, I become. So I choose to think power. Let me give you a system. Install this ritual into your life. Morning. Write one sentence describing the man you're becoming. Present tense, clear, direct. Example, I am disciplined, decisive, and destined to build an empire. Afternoon, when distractions peak. Stop. Speak that sentence aloud with fire because your future depends on it. Night. Close your eyes. Visualize that identity as already real. Feel it. Speak it again. Let your subconscious dream about the man you've chosen to become. This is how you rewire your brain, not with emotion, but with repetition, not with hype, but with rhythm. This is how Lincoln endured depression, political betrayal, and national division, not because he always felt strong, but because his dominant thought was unity, and he fed that thought until it consumed his soul. And that is now your task. Build a mental anchor so strong no storm can move it. Speak louder to yourself than the world ever could. Obey the law that never fails. You become what you think about most. Say it with me now. I think power, I speak power, I become power. And then say it again, and again, and again. Until your subconscious doesn't just believe it, it becomes it.
If this message touched your heart, take a moment to like the video. It helps more than you know. Share it with someone who might need this today. And if you want more content that feeds your soul, subscribe and stay with us. Your journey matters, and you're not alone.
Law 2. Faith is the only antidote to fear. If you want to build a life of power, of impact, of wealth and purpose, you must understand this law. Faith and fear cannot live in the same space. One will dominate, one will die. You cannot speak about becoming great while rehearsing your hesitation. You cannot walk toward destiny while bowing to fear. Something has to go. And let me make this clear. Faith isn't a feeling. Faith is not a burst of motivation. It's not a slogan. It's not a moment of inspiration after a good speech. No. Faith is a decision, a trained, rehearsed state of mind. It's belief that's been burned into your nervous system by repetition and choice. Let me tell you a story. Henry Ford was laughed at when he started. The idea of a horseless carriage was a joke. When he proposed an 8-cylinder engine in one block, even his own engineers told him it was impossible. You know what Ford said? Build it anyway. They came back again. It can't be done. He didn't argue. He didn't negotiate. He repeated himself. Build it anyway. Again and again and again, until they did. That wasn't arrogance. It was trained belief. It was identity in action. Ford once said, "Obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off your goal." That's faith. You stay locked on the vision. You repeat belief until it becomes louder than every doubt in the room. Now let's talk Edison. 10,000 failures, 10,000 attempts that didn't work. Do you think he never doubted himself? Of course he did. He was human. But his dominant thought, his mental frequency, was faith. Not what if I fail, but I will find a way. He said, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Do you see what he did there? He reframed reality. He spoke belief into existence. Because here's the truth most people will never understand. Faith isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act anyway. Let's talk Lincoln. He wasn't the popular candidate. He wasn't the easy choice. He lost elections, suffered depression, and was mocked by political elites. And yet he led a nation through the bloodiest civil war in its history. Not because he always felt strong, but because he chose to keep believing. When death, betrayal, and defeat surrounded him, he wrote affirmations to himself. He spoke power into his own mind. Why? Because he knew something most never learn. If you don't feed faith, fear will take over. You can't beat fear with facts. You beat it by starving it. You beat it by feeding something stronger, faith. So let me ask you, when fear whispers, "You're not ready," do you answer with belief? When the path gets dark, do you freeze or do you move anyway? You must train yourself to live in faith. Let me give you the ritual. Declare your vision daily. Speak it aloud, not as a wish, but as law. Act in alignment with that vision, even when you don't feel ready. Because action creates evidence, and evidence feeds belief. Refuse to speak fear. No more casual language. No more "I hope," or "I'll try," or "maybe someday." Speak this now, out loud, with conviction. Faith is not emotion. Faith is identity. I move before I feel ready. I trust before I see results. I act in faith. I build in faith. I win in faith. Let that be your code. Andrew Carnegie once told me, "Mr. Hill, teach men to replace fear with faith. Do that, and they will build anything." That single sentence became my mission, and now it must become yours. Because fear doesn't go away with time. Fear doesn't vanish because you researched more. It gets replaced only by repeated belief, only by decisive action. This is how you rewrite the code of your mind. This is how you destroy doubt. This is how you install faith at the very core of who you are. Say this again. Say it until it sticks. From this day forward, I do not obey fear. I act in faith. I speak belief. I move like a man who has already won. Repeat it, not once, every day, because repetition is the only language your subconscious understands. And once your subconscious accepts this law, there's nothing you cannot do. Law 3. The law of a definite chief aim. There's no greater tragedy than a man with potential drifting. Drifting in thought, drifting in effort, drifting in identity. Why? Because he lacks one thing, a definite chief aim. Without it, he wakes up to distraction, not direction. He walks in confusion, not command. And a man without a definite chief aim, he becomes a leaf in the wind, tossed by opinions, pulled by random opportunity, ruled by hesitation, and forgotten by history. But the man with one dominating aim, the one who repeats it, affirms it, breathes it daily, he is unstoppable. He walks with power. He acts with clarity. He no longer wonders what he should be doing, because he already knows. Let's go back to Carnegie. When I met him, I was full of ambition, but I had no aim, no direction, no target. I was all fire, no focus. And he told me plainly, "Young man, a person who does not have a definite purpose in life falls easy prey to petty worries, fears, troubles, and self-pity, all of which lead to failure." His own chief aim wasn't just to be rich, it was to become the steel king of America, to transform an entire industry, to revolutionize how things were built. Every decision he made, every book he read, every man he hired, every thought he entertained served that one aim. And that's the secret. You don't need many goals. You need one goal that dominates the rest. Let's look at Ford again. His aim wasn't to make fancy cars. It was to make the automobile affordable to every working man. And every step he took, every factory design, every system was in service to that goal. Even when it got hard, Ford didn't change the aim. He refined the strategy. And because of that, he built one of the greatest industrial legacies in history. Let me be crystal clear. Your results, good or bad, are either the byproduct of a clear aim or the result of drifting. So I ask you, what is your definite chief aim? Have you written it down? Do you repeat it every morning and night? Have you built your identity around it? Or are you still floating, waiting for purpose to strike like lightning? It won't. Purpose isn't found, it's declared. And the moment you declare it, the moment you train your subconscious to accept it, you become dangerous. Let me give you the blueprint. Write your aim in present tense. I am building, followed by your clear, specific mission. Repeat it with emotion daily. Morning and night. No emotion equals no imprint. Act in alignment daily. Even the smallest step strengthens the identity. Your life will either be the result of your chief aim or of someone else's plan for you. There is no in-between. So say this now. I do not drift, I declare. I do not react, I aim. I do not guess, I know what I'm building. Say it every day. Just like Carnegie, just like Ford, just like Edison. They weren't born special. They were born focused. And now that you know this law, there are no more excuses.
Law 4. The law of specialized knowledge. Let's destroy a myth right now. You've been told knowledge is power, but that's only half the truth. Knowledge is potential power,
but it becomes real power only when it's focused, specialized, and applied. A man can know a little about everything and still achieve nothing. But the man who masters one thing, one skill, one domain, and applies it with ruthless focus, that man becomes irreplaceable. Let me introduce you to that law: specialized knowledge. It's the difference between a man who dabbles and a man who dominates. Let's go back to Henry Ford. Critics said he was uneducated, that he didn't know enough to lead. You know what he did? He sued them. And when he took the stand in court, he said, "I don't clutter my mind with facts I can hire a man to give me in a minute." What was he really saying? That general knowledge wasn't the key. Focused utility was. Ford didn't know everything. He didn't need to. He knew what mattered to his vision. He knew how to direct it. He had mastery in what moved the mission, and that made him lethal. He understood that the world doesn't reward intelligence. It rewards usefulness, and usefulness is born through specialization. Now let's look at Edison. He wasn't a philosopher, not a generalist, not a jack of all trades. He was a master of electrical systems, resistance, invention. His depth of knowledge on those subjects was unmatched. He ran experiments, thousands of them, not for entertainment, but for installation. He studied truth, not trivia. And that's why he lit up the world. Let me ask you something personal now. What is the one field, the one skill, the one domain that, if you mastered it, would make you unreplaceable? That's where your obsession belongs. Let's revisit Charles Schwab. Not the most technically educated, not an engineer, but he mastered the psychology of leadership. He understood people, strategy, organizational flow, and that specialized knowledge made him indispensable. Carnegie didn't choose him because he was smart. He chose him because he was useful. So I'll ask again, what is your domain? Stop scattering your attention. Stop studying at random. Pick one mountain and climb it. Here's your 5-step blueprint to apply this law. Define your definite chief aim. You should already have this written. Ask, what knowledge directly fuels this aim? Get specific. Clarity is power. List the core skills required to dominate your field. Leadership, sales, systems, strategy, master them. Create your reading list. 5 to 10 books or mentors that go deep, not wide. Study them like your life depends on it. Teach what you learn, because when you teach, you internalize, you sharpen, you own it. This is how giants are built. Not by consuming endlessly, but by choosing one fire and feeding it daily. Now let me give you a warning. This law requires patience. The rewards won't come overnight, but they will come, because the man who builds specialized knowledge becomes bulletproof. He doesn't beg for opportunity. He becomes the opportunity. Let me give you a final example. Abraham Lincoln. No elite education, no prestigious background, but he chose to master language. He read voraciously. He taught himself law. He studied oratory and scripture, because he knew if he could move hearts, he could move nations. That's why he's remembered not just as a president, but as a legendary communicator. He climbed one mountain, and he became a giant. So say this aloud. I am not a generalist. I am a weapon. I do not chase distraction. I build mastery. My knowledge is deep. My knowledge is rare. My knowledge is power. Repeat that daily, because the world doesn't give its greatest rewards to those who know a little about everything. It gives them to the few who know exactly what they're doing and do it better than anyone else. Law 5. Surround yourself with power. You may believe success is a solo journey, that if you work hard enough, focus long enough, you'll win, alone. But I need to tell you the truth now. No man becomes powerful in isolation. Every empire, every legacy, every world-changing movement was built with others. Your environment will either build you or break you. There is no middle ground. Let me say this as plain as possible. You will rise with the people who breathe fire into your vision, or you will sink surrounded by those who drain it. Let's go back to Ford. He didn't build the Ford Motor Company alone. He formed what I taught as a mastermind group. Not a social club, not a place to vent. A group of minds aligned by belief, purpose, vision. Ford surrounded himself with Thomas Edison, Harvey Firestone, and Luther Burbank. They met not for gossip, but for greatness. They exchanged ideas. They multiplied belief, because belief, when shared, grows, and fear, when left unchecked among small minds, spreads like disease. And now ask yourself this: who is in your circle? Who do you give access to your mind, your energy, your future? Andrew Carnegie once told me, "Mr. Hill, show me a man's 5 closest associates, and I'll show him his future." Read that again, because you cannot outgrow your circle. You cannot hold on to discipline surrounded by distraction. You cannot build faith in a room filled with doubt. Carnegie handpicked every man he worked with, not just for skill, but for spirit. He demanded belief. He demanded conviction. He demanded fire. Look at Edison again. He wouldn't tolerate cynicism in his lab. If an assistant joked too often about failure, they were removed. Not because he was harsh, but because he understood. The mind is sacred space. You must protect your atmosphere like your life depends on it, because it does. So now let's get real. If your circle mocks ambition, if your friends default to sarcasm, if they normalize hesitation, flinch at bold ideas, or talk small, you're not surrounded by allies. You're surrounded by limitations. You don't need cheerleaders. You need builders. People who look you in the eye and say, "You haven't even scratched your potential yet." This law isn't just about people. It's also about input. The books you read, the voices you let in, the content you consume when no one is watching. Because what you feed your mind becomes the voice you hear when you're alone. And that voice, it shapes your identity. So here's what you must do. Build your environment like it's your temple. Find mentors, even if only through books. Seek out aligned minds. Even one makes a difference. Purge what drains you, even if it's entertaining. Say this aloud. I do not allow weakness in my circle. I do not breathe the air of average. I do not seek approval. I seek alignment. This is your new standard. Let me leave you with one more story. Abraham Lincoln, during the Civil War, surrounded himself not with flatterers, but with truth-tellers, people who challenged him, who believed in unity, who believed in him. And in that circle, he made decisions that changed the world. You will be called to do the same. Surround yourself with power, or be crushed by proximity to weakness. The law is simple. If you want to rise, raise your environment. Say it now. I walk with power. I speak with power. I build my circle on fire. not comfort. That is your new law.
If this message touched your heart, take a moment to like the video. It helps more than you know. Share it with someone who might need this today. And if you want more content that feeds your soul, subscribe and stay with us. Your journey matters, and you're not alone.
Law 6. Speak as if it's already done. There are two kinds of language in this world: the language of kings and the language of prisoners. One creates destiny, the other confirms defeat. Every man is fluent in one, and it shows, not just in what he says out loud, but in the tone of his thoughts when no one is listening. This law is simple but radical. Speak as if the victory is already yours. Not someday, not if I'm lucky, not if they let me. Now. Because before your life changes, your vocabulary has to change. Before you become powerful, you have to speak power. This is not motivational fluff. It's neuroscience. It's mental coding. It's what separates average from exceptional. Let me show you. Henry Ford, the man who revolutionized industry, once said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." That's not a clever quote. It's a key to the kingdom. When Ford's engineers told him that building a V8 engine in one block was impossible, he didn't debate. He didn't say, "Let's try." He didn't say, "We'll see." He said, "Build it anyway." That phrase wasn't hope, it was command. His language aligned with his identity. And when identity aligns with action, results become inevitable. Thomas Edison, 10,000 failed prototypes, endless rejection. But his tone never shifted. He said, "I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." What does that tell you? That the outcome didn't determine his speech. His speech determined the outcome. Because Edison didn't wait to succeed to speak with power. He spoke power, and success had to follow. You must do the same. You must stop speaking from your past and start speaking from your future. Because the words you use aren't commentary, they are commands to your nervous system. Say, "I'll try." Your subconscious hears, "We're not certain." Say, "Maybe someday." Your subconscious hears, "We're not ready." Say, "I can't." Your subconscious hears, "This is who I am." But say, "I am becoming." It is already done. I walk in certainty. And your subconscious reshapes your reality to match that identity. Let's return to Carnegie. He wrote his definite chief aim. Then he read it aloud, morning and night. Why? Because if he didn't speak his belief, he would start to doubt it. Let that sink in. If I stop speaking it, I start doubting it. Silence is the oxygen of fear. But speech? Speech is fire. So here's your command. Be militant about your self-talk. Speak this now out loud. I am the man who finishes what he starts. I do not flinch, I do not fold. I walk like the mountain has already moved. And don't say it once, say it daily, in the dark, in the doubt, before your biggest decisions. Because here's what the great ones knew. You don't speak what's real, you speak what will become real. You speak it before you see it. That's how you take control of your mind. That's how you starve hesitation. That's how you install new identity. Let's go back to Lincoln. His Gettysburg Address was only 272 words, but every word burned with conviction. Every line reshaped the course of a war and a nation. He didn't speak softly. He didn't apologize for the mission. He declared it. And so must you. Say this now without apology. I am building something unshakable. I do not drift, I declare. I speak belief until my world obeys, because the world responds to the tone of your belief. Write your future in the present tense. Speak it as law. And when fear returns, when doubt whispers, raise your voice. Tell your subconscious who's in charge. I am the man who speaks power. I am the man who lives power. My voice builds my world. This is your new language. Now let's move to the law that turns words into motion. Law 7. Move like fire. The power of decisive action. There comes a moment in every man's life when thinking must end and movement must begin. Because no matter how strong your belief, no matter how powerful your words, if you don't move, they die in the graveyard of hesitation. This is the 7th law. Move like fire. Act with speed. Decide with clarity. Execute without waiting for permission. Let me say this loud. Action proves belief. Not words, not vision boards, not someday plans. Action. Let's return to Ford. His vision for the automobile was outrageous at the time. Cities weren't ready. Roads didn't exist. Public opinion was skeptical. But Ford acted. He didn't wait for perfect conditions. He moved. And because he moved, everything else followed. He once said, "You can't build a reputation on what you're going to do." He was right. Legacy is built by motion. Now let's go back to Edison. 10,000 failed prototypes, 10,000 rejections, and yet after every no, he didn't reflect, he acted. Another test, another experiment, another spark. Because Edison knew something most never grasp. Fear attaches itself to stillness, but when you move, fear can't land on you. Fear thrives in delay. It feeds on hesitation. It grows in silence. But movement kills fear. Now Charles M. Schwab. When Carnegie needed someone who could act with clarity and rally others, he picked Schwab. Why? Because Schwab had a gift. He moved. He walked into boardrooms, made decisions, delivered visions with boldness. Not because he had all the answers, but because he moved while others waited. And the world rewards that. Not the man who plans forever, but the man who moves now. So ask yourself, do you delay when you already know the answer? Do you wait for the perfect moment that never arrives? Do you rehearse preparation while avoiding the leap? Here's the truth. Your delay is a lie. It says, "I'm just being careful." No, you're just afraid. And greatness doesn't come to the most careful. It comes to the most decisive. Let me give you a hard truth. Confidence doesn't come before movement. It comes because of movement. You must speak before your voice feels perfect. Move before your legs stop shaking. Act before the world applauds. That's how identity shifts. Let's revisit Lincoln. When he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, his advisors said, "Wait, the timing isn't right." They warned it would divide the country, cost him votes, maybe the war. But Lincoln didn't delay. He acted, because he knew hesitation kills momentum and compromise kills history. He made the decision not because it was easy, but because it was right. That one move changed everything. So now I ask you, what have you been putting off? What decision have you rehearsed but not made? What move have you delayed under the mask of thinking? Act now. Even when it hurts, even when it's messy, even when the next step is unclear. Because fire doesn't ask permission to burn. It ignites. Let that be your identity. Say this: I do not delay. I act as if it's already done. I train my mind through motion. My action proves my identity. And repeat it, because motion rewires the brain faster than thought. The more you move, the more your subconscious believes. The more it believes, the more power you unlock. This is how every legacy begins, not with brilliance, not with luck, with movement. Let this law become your turning point, the day you stopped waiting, the day you moved like fire. Now let's continue to the next law, one that doesn't just build momentum, but ensures your power becomes permanent.
Law 8. Train the mind. Master your inner language. Your success or failure doesn't begin with luck. It doesn't begin with talent. It doesn't even begin with strategy. It begins with the words you say to yourself when no one else is listening. This is Law 8. Train the mind. Master your inner language. Because the most dangerous man in the world is not the one with power, wealth, or strength. It's the one who controls what he tells himself. Every moment you hesitate, every time you delay, every decision you avoid, those aren't because of circumstance, they're because of language. And if that inner language is weak, your results will be weak. Let me show you a pattern. When I studied Carnegie, Ford, Edison, Lincoln, men who shaped history, one thing became clear. They didn't just speak power out loud. They spoke it internally, with discipline. Let's start with Andrew Carnegie. He came from nothing, a Scottish boy working in a bobbin factory. No riches, no mentors. But he fed his mind differently. While the world said you can't, he repeated to himself, I must. While others said, this is enough, he declared, there is more. Carnegie wrote his chief aim, spoke it aloud, morning and night, with emotion, until that belief became his new identity. That's not motivation, that's installation. It's called auto-suggestion, the most powerful force in personal development. Let me be clear, your mind is programmable. It doesn't respond to logic. It responds to repetition with emotion. So what you tell yourself daily with intensity becomes law. Now, Henry Ford. You've heard the quote, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. But that wasn't a marketing phrase for Ford. That was his operating system. Do you know how many times people told him he was wrong? That his dream was ridiculous? That mass-producing automobiles was impossible? He didn't parrot their fear. He trained his mind to reject doubt by repeating power. He said, it will be done. Not I hope, not maybe someday. It will be done. That mindset, installed through language, built an empire. Now Edison, 10,000 failures, 10,000 rejections, and yet he never accepted defeat, not in his thoughts. His inner voice didn't whisper, give up. It whispered, you're closer, keep going, one more. He trained himself to reframe failure until it became fuel. Where does that resilience come from? Not genetics, not luck, but repetition of identity installed through disciplined inner speech. Let's talk about Lincoln, a man crushed by depression, surrounded by betrayal, fighting a war on every front. He didn't rise because of confidence. He rose because of commitment. In silence, he journaled, reflected, affirmed purpose. When everything around him was chaos, he grounded himself in clarity through language. This is your work now, to become militant about the words you feed your subconscious, because your mind is always listening, and it always obeys the voice you rehearse most. Speak this now. I do not speak weakness. I install power. I do not rehearse defeat. I rehearse identity. I do not echo the world. I build my own language. Because here's the truth. Your subconscious doesn't judge what you say. It doesn't question it. It just records. And whatever gets repeated most, especially with emotion, becomes your operating system. So if you joke about failure, if you casually say, "I'm lazy," or "I'm stuck," or "I don't know what I'm doing," then don't be shocked when that becomes your life. The subconscious can't tell the difference between sarcasm and certainty. It obeys tone, it obeys rhythm, it obeys language. So here's your new standard. Write affirmations that match the man you want to become. Speak them aloud, every day, with conviction. Because this is not superstition, this is strategy. Every great man I studied rewired their destiny by rewiring their dialogue. You say you want to be fearless? Then stop saying you're afraid. You say you want to be disciplined? Stop calling yourself lazy. You say you want to be unstoppable? Then your inner voice must say so before your outer world shows it. Let's get practical. Each morning, before the world gets noisy, before your fears wake up, before doubt has a chance to rise, declare your identity out loud with force. I am decisive. I am focused. I am relentless. I am becoming the man I was designed to be. Because the world will scream fear at you all day long. It will whisper doubt. And if you don't already have a stronger voice installed, you will obey the world instead of your vision. So let's speak it again with fire. I do not speak fear. I speak belief. I do not rehearse old stories. I write new ones. I am the architect of my mind. I speak power, and I live it. You do this every day, just 30 days, and your outer world will begin to bend, not because of magic, but because of mental alignment. And when the mind aligns, the body follows, the decisions follow, the world follows, because repetition builds rhythm, and rhythm builds reality. So say it one last time. I rehearse power. I rehearse fire. I rehearse the voice of the man I am becoming until there is no room left for the voice of the man I used to be. This is the voice you return to. This is your new language. Let's move now into the next law, one that kills distraction and brings total command. Law 9. Command your time. Own every hour. Here is a truth most men avoid their entire lives. If you don't master your time, you don't master anything. Time isn't just what passes. Time is the canvas on which your legacy is painted. And every wasted hour isn't just time lost, it's potential buried. This is Law 9. Command your time. Own every hour. The men I studied, Carnegie, Ford, Edison, Schwab, Lincoln, they weren't just visionaries. They were militant about their hours. They structured their days with the same precision as a general leading an army. Let's start with Carnegie. He said, "Do your duty and a little more, and the future will take care of itself." But that little more wasn't random. He scheduled it. His days were divided with intention. Mornings, strategy and reading. Afternoons, execution. Evenings, reflection and realignment. Every meeting had a purpose. Every block of time had a target. He built his empire with rhythm. Now Ford, he revolutionized production, not just with machines, but with time mastery. He didn't believe in endless meetings or scattered tasks. He said, thinking is the hardest work there is, which is probably why so few engage in it. He meant focused thinking, time carved out, undistracted, for deep work. His calendar was a weapon, not a suggestion, and that's why he won. Edison. He didn't stumble into 1,093 patents. He locked himself in his lab for days at a time. Time wasn't just tracked, it was engineered. His schedule was built for flow, for repetition, for breakthroughs. And Lincoln, during the chaos of Civil War, he structured his hours for solitude, for reading, for clarity. He wasn't rushed because he already claimed the time others tried to steal. And you must do the same. Let me be blunt. Your calendar is your mirror. It shows who you are, who you serve, what you believe. You either control it or it controls you. So here's your new standard. First hour, silence, autosuggestion, visualization. Install your identity. Second hour, deep work, no distractions, move the mission. Third hour, execute a major task, no delay. Midday, reflection, reset the mind, feed the body. Afternoon, communication, planning, strategic alignment. Evening, review, repetition, reinforcement. Track every hour, because untracked time is forgotten time, and forgotten time is where greatness dies. Say it now.
If this message touched your heart, take a moment to like the video. It helps more than you know. Share it with someone who might need this today. And if you want more content that feeds your soul, subscribe and stay with us. Your journey matters, and you're not alone.
Law 10. Kill the old identity and rise into power. There comes a time in every man's life when growth is no longer enough. He must not just improve, he must transform. He must kill the version of himself that keeps surviving, the weak one, the hesitant one, the man who plays small, and become someone new. This is Law 10. Kill the old identity and rise into power. Let me say this clearly. The enemy of your future is not fear. It's not laziness. It's not ignorance. It's identity, the quiet agreement you made with mediocrity about who you are. And that agreement must be destroyed right now. Because if you do not kill the old identity, you will always return to it. Just like water finds its level, a man always returns to the self-image he accepts. You can change your habits. You can change your schedule. But if you don't change who you believe you are, you'll sabotage everything. Here's the brutal truth. You are addicted to the man you used to be, the one who delays, who doubts, who tolerates excuses, who breaks promises to himself. And that version of you must die. He can't be negotiated with. He can't be managed. He can't be tamed. He must be killed, because that man will always pull you back to comfort, and comfort is a liar. Comfort is a prison with no locks. The bars are made of habit. The keys? You already have them. But most men never leave. They say, tomorrow I'll rise. They say, one day I'll change. But they don't, because the old identity keeps whispering, it's safer here. But fire doesn't live in safety, and greatness is forged in fire. Let's return to Lincoln. During the blood-soaked winter of the Civil War, advisors begged him to wait, to compromise, to delay emancipation. But Lincoln made a choice most never could. He killed the part of himself that craved approval. He killed the part that feared criticism. And in its place, he became the architect of freedom. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation not because it was popular, but because it was necessary. And in doing so,
He became someone else. Not the man people elected, the man history remembers. Legends aren't born, they're forged. Now Carnegie, a poor immigrant boy with no connections. Every day he acted like the man he was becoming, not the man he had been. He studied greatness, rehearsed leadership, carried himself like a king long before the world crowned him. And slowly, his old self died. The one who apologized, the one who doubted, the one who tolerated excuses. He didn't manage him, he replaced him with conviction. Now Ford, he wasn't born into success. He wasn't handed a legacy. He was told his vision was impossible, that people would never accept cars, that mass production was a fantasy. But Ford didn't listen. He decided, I am the man who changes the world. And then he walked in that identity every day. And eventually, the world caught up. Do you understand now? Every time you act like the man you used to be, you reinforce his survival. But every time you speak, move, decide, train, and believe like the man you are becoming, you starve the old self until he can't breathe anymore. That's how real transformation happens, not from a single motivational burst, but from identity repetition. So here is your daily ritual. Every morning, speak your new identity aloud, not as a wish, as a command. I am decisive. I am disciplined. I am the man who follows through. I lead with certainty. I act like the man who wins because I am that man. And when the old voice returns, the one that says, slow down, be careful, you're not ready, you speak back with force. That man no longer speaks for me. That man is dead. I have already decided. Say this again. I have already decided. Because decision is the death of the old identity, and repetition is what buries it. Your subconscious mind is waiting for new instructions, not once, daily. Because once your subconscious accepts the new identity as law, everything changes. Your tone, your posture, your presence, your results. The world does not respond to who you hope to be. It responds to the identity you practice. Let me give you one final truth. Doubt is not truth, it's habit, and like all habits, it can be broken by belief, by language, by violently rejecting the old version of yourself every time it rises. So now I ask you, are you willing to kill the old identity? Not gently, not one day, now. Are you willing to step into the fire of your future, even if it burns the image of who you thought you were? Because I promise you this, the man you were born to be is already inside you, but he cannot rise while the old one survives. So say this with me, out loud. I am no longer the man who hesitates. I do not explain. I do not delay. I walk in identity, not insecurity. I repeat power until weakness dies. Repeat it daily. Say it until your mind accepts it. Say it until the old self suffocates under the weight of your new decision. Say it until the man who used to quit is unrecognizable. Because the man who wins is already inside you. You're not here to recover. You're not here to adjust. You're here to transform. And this final law, the law of death and resurrection, is your rebirth. So now we end where all true power begins, with the pen in your hand. Final transition. The rewrite begins now. You may think your story is already written, that your mistakes have shaped your ceiling,
that your past has locked in your future. But you are not broken. You are unwritten. You are not the man shaped by failure. You are the man awakened by it. The fear, the pain, the delay, it was not your end. It was your setup, the resistance before the rise. And now, this moment is the pen, and you are the author. No one else. Not your past, not your trauma, not your fears. Only you. So I ask you, what story will you write now? Will you continue the old chapter where fear sets the pace, where hesitation holds the pen, where the old identity writes the ending? Or will you rewrite it? Will you flip the page and declare, this is the chapter where I become unshakable? This is where I decide, not once, but daily, who I am. Because these 10 laws are not suggestions. They are new laws of identity. And identity is not written in stone. It is written in repetition. You want to become unstoppable? Then repeat the laws. Repeat your belief. Repeat your identity. Until the old story collapses and the world has no choice but to believe in the new you. Say it now, like a man who has already won. I am the rewrite. This is my chapter. These are my new laws, and I repeat them until I become them. Now, pick up the pen and begin.
This is the rewrite. Let us end this where all true power begins, with the pen in your hand. You might think your story is already written, that your past has the final word, that your patterns are permanent, that your mistakes are your limits. But I tell you now, you are not the result of your failures, you are the author of what comes next. Every delay you've endured, every hesitation you've wrestled with, every fear that's haunted your decisions, they weren't the ending. They were the setup, the test before the rise, the tension before the transformation. All of it brought you to this moment. And this moment is the pen. This is where you take it back, and you write something new, not in ink, but in identity. Because you are not who you used to be. You are who you choose to repeat. Let me remind you of something powerful. Your subconscious does not respond to potential. It responds to repetition. And repetition is how giants are born. Andrew Carnegie didn't just dream of wealth. He rehearsed it every morning, every night, until belief became bone deep. Henry Ford didn't just visualize revolution. He acted it out. He spoke it. He built it. Repetition made his vision inevitable. Thomas Edison didn't just tinker with inventions. He installed his identity with every experiment, every failure, every step forward. Abraham Lincoln didn't rise on popularity. He rose because every day he chose identity over public opinion. So now it's your turn. Your habits, your beliefs, your words, they are not set in stone. They are set in repetition. This is your manual now. This speech, this entire rewrite, was never meant to be listened to once. It's meant to be returned to, like a warrior returns to his weapon, daily, faithfully, relentlessly, until the old programming is shattered, until the new identity is installed, until there is no doubt left, only fire. Let's give you your new rituals. 1. Morning Law Ritual. Each morning, choose one of the 10 laws. Speak it aloud. Let it set the tone. Let it shape your focus. Let it remind you who you are becoming. Example. Today I walk in Law 3. My definite chief aim guides every step I take. Repeat it like it's your job, because it is. 2. Night Reinstallation. Before sleep, Listen to this message again. You do not skip a day. You do not wait for motivation. You replay it until it plays through you. Because repetition isn't boring. Repetition is how identity is written. What you rehearse becomes rhythm. What becomes rhythm becomes reality. And your reality is about to become unrecognizable. Say it with me now. Let's lock in what you've earned. Let this be the final code, the seal, the burn that never fades. I am not broken. I am unwritten. The past was preparation. I choose what happens next. I repeat my power. I reject my doubt. I am the author now, and I do not look back. Let the world hear it in your walk. Let your silence speak louder than their noise. Let your rhythm be unshakable. This is the chapter where you become unstoppable. Do you feel it? That shift in your spine, that fire in your chest. That's not hype. That's not inspiration. That's the new standard being born inside you. It's the standard of men who don't drift, men who don't flinch, men who don't wait for the world to give permission. They write the rules with discipline, with decision, with daily fire. You're one of them now, because you've heard the truth, you've accepted the law, and now you live it. No one can take this from you. Not your past, not your pain, not your fear, not your family, not your failures, not your friends. Because this transformation wasn't given to you. You chose it. And because you chose it, you own it. Repeat these words one last time. Repeat them with thunder in your voice and steel in your spine. I am the rewrite. This is my chapter. This is my new law. And I repeat it until I become it. Now close the old book. Pick up the pen. Write the man you were born to be. Write him with fire. Write him with faith. Write him with zero apology. Because the world won't know what hit it. This is the end of the speech. This is the beginning of the man who rises, the man who leads, the man who rewrites everything. It begins now. Go, and don't just live it, repeat it.